Back in the 1990s, radio scanning in the United States was encouraged and it was big business. But in the UK, the radio scanning hobby was under attack. Whilst shortwave listening was tolerated, VHF and UHF scanning was frowned upon, and in the early 1990s there were signs appearing to indicate that legislation to ban scanners was being planned. Now, many of my UK viewers take issue with these sorts of stories on the UK radio scanning scene and comment that it was never illegal and they never had any issues. But the truth is, VHF and UHF scanning was at one point frowned upon. The emergence of radio scanning directories such as the confidential plan we've discussed before opened up the eyes of the government. All of a sudden, they realised that new technology and the spread of information meant that the police, the military, the government and even the Secret Service were being eavesdropped on. The freedoms that both US and Canadian scanner enthusiasts took for granted, such as freely published scanner frequency guides for many years, was something that only appeared on the market in the UK in the early 1990s. This in itself was at great personal risk to both the publisher and the author. Scanning in the UK began to emerge following the influx of reasonably priced CB radio equipment from the US in the mid-1970s, but technology then meant that it wasn't really on the radar as a risk. Originally, CB radios too were banned in Britain. However, due to the number of radios already illegally imported, the government was forced to concede. Estimates put the number of scanners in the UK at around 250,000 in 1992, yet under British law, these owners were only legally allowed to listen to certain portions of the spectrum. This really only meant 88 to 108 MHz broadcast band, the various amateur bands and the television band. Outside of these limits, enthusiasts caught listening could either face a fine of around £2,000 and 2 years imprisonment under the Interception of Communications Act, or around a £5,000 fine and confiscation of all equipment under the 1986 Wireless Telegraphy Act, or even worse, both. For many years, scanner listeners relied on underground scanner frequency guides, often paying as much as £10 for just 2 pages. The first truly open publication of a comprehensive VHF-UHF frequency list was published by Interproducts of Perth in Scotland in mid-1991. This guide, the UK Scanning Directory, took the unprecedented step of listing actual spot frequencies, over 7,000 in total. The general sentiment within the UK was that this courageous publication would open the floodgates and information would become available to the public. However, this was not to be, and MPs were soon demanding that the subversive book should be banned. Indeed, its contents were generally considered innocuous, but sensationalised newspaper and television reports brought the hobby into disrepute, illustrating supposed risks to national security. When a Sky TV news report asked the Department of Trade and Industry to comment on the book, a spokesman regurgitated the usual "it is illegal to listen to any of these frequencies." However, he added, it's not illegal to publish them. If the government plan was to create a false sense of security, that is exactly what they did. In December 1992, an advert advertised in the UK-based Shortwave magazine proudly announced that the British Scanner Guide contained over 8,000 spot frequencies. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A man who we'll call Terence was a publisher, former police communications officer, and author of the British Scanner Guide. He noticed that his mail had begun to mysteriously drop off to nothing. Unable to comprehend why trade would just drop to zero overnight, Terence approached his local mail sorting office seeking an explanation. He was informed that several bags of his mail had got lost. In fact, his mail was being intercepted by his former employees, the police, who also deemed it necessary to tap his telephone. 2 weeks later, a dawn raid decimated the stock and equipment of his business premises in Reading. The raid itself happened at 6:45 on the morning of the 18th of January 1993 and involved 10 plainclothes policemen who, after producing a warrant, seized everything in the company office. This included radios, computers, discs, books, files, and everything. The pretext of the raid was that the proprietor was being charged with the theft of a radio, a charge that was subsequently dropped after 7 hours of police interrogation. Terence hadn't broken any law, as there was no law that banned such UK publications, and he certainly hadn't stolen any radio. During his 7-hour interrogation, several policemen had taken up residence in his office to answer the telephone calls. However, rather than take orders for the scanning guide, they spoke under the guise of an accountant and informed callers that Terence had gone bankrupt and the book was no longer available. Within a couple of days of his release, customers whose mail had originally gotten lost received a letter from the police. The letter revealed details of an ongoing investigation by the International and Organised Crime Division of New Scotland Yard into Terence's business and implied that the British Scanner Guide didn't exist but was merely a ploy to cheat customers out of their money. Not surprisingly, the customers who had allegedly been cheated were the same customers whose mail had disappeared. Accompanying the letter was a witness statement form which recipients were requested to fill in and sign, and these were to be used as evidence in Terence's trial. In a final act, Terence was charged on the 28th of January 1993 with obtaining property and money under false pretences and impersonating a police officer. However, one fact remained: the British Scanner Guide was still available for sale and many customers did receive their copy. It seems likely that the Metropolitan Police were just pawns in a conspiracy and were taking their orders from a higher power who some believed to be MI5 operating on behalf of a government policy that was yet to be passed into law that sought to ban scanning in the UK.